between how we prepare our students for good jobs and how employers get what they want and need. And it was not like that, not in the recent history. Like many companies, we at Bollinger Shipyards find the forecasting of where to find skilled workers as one of the most disturbing unknowns in bidding new work. Just last week, we were awarded a design contract that could result in the need for 2,600 new workers should we win the contract to build a new fleet for the United States Coast Guard. We have been very lucky. We have won the last 4 contracts like that to build the last 4 fleets. So there's a good chance we could get it. And the total cost implementation of a contract like that could be $10.5 billion for this state. What an exciting idea, right? But pretty daunting and pretty scary for those of us who have to provide a workforce to do that work. There's no time to waste for higher education to respond to all the new work that we know is coming here like a tsunami. K through 12, under the leadership of a very focused superintendent and Bessie board, is doing great things to help students to engage and prepare for their own pursuit of happiness. Career path curriculums must be offered to the 80% of the students that will not be achieving a 4-year degree. And that's fine with the business world. We need every one of them. And the schools finally will not be punished for developing such curriculums, but rewarded for doing such curriculums. Yay, finally, a good thing. I think we have a great agenda for you today. It is our great hope that you have great take-home value for being here. We will have panel discussions and presentations from local and national experts on the subject of workforce and its relationship to what we do in higher education. And during the day, please visit with each other and keep the conversations going. I believe that collaboration and people to people is the way that is a ticket for us to be successful in higher education. 2015 and 2016 are coming like a huge tsunami at us. We know it's coming and we have to be prepared. We cannot miss the opportunity to get this right. I just want to say too that I know and understand the power of a team. Each one of you works with a team of 16 people in managing the system that you work with. But I want to remind you that there's also great power in one. Each of you has great power and influence. I want you to use it. Use your gifts. Leadership is influence. And some of our time today will be spent discussing what you yourself can do as a trustee for the system you serve.
I think it starts with acknowledging that the American higher education system may very well be the crown jewel of the entire world. And I think we've lost track of a lot about what's going right with it right now. At the same time, the world has changed in a lot of ways, and we're under a lot of pressure to change what we're doing. So teaching is starting to become something that's a lifelong exercise, not just a fixed point in time. And the kinds of things and the ways that we need to learn are definitely shifting to a place where it's much more experiential, hands-on, real-world experience combined with some of the traditional academic elements.
The things that I would take away are really the need for alignment of education and training with workforce demand, which is what we've been working on for a few years now. And as part of that, continuous realignment, because as the industry mix and the volume of demand changes in the state, we have to continually repurpose our resources to meet that demand today and into the future as best as we can predict it. We've got to make sure that college does lead to a good job, because good jobs require college, something beyond high school. You can't get one without the other in anything near the numbers that most people can take some assurance that they have a good future. So we work very hard on that alignment piece, and really from K through 20 and beyond. But the key for me, though, I think, is that a kid in high school, if not middle school, has to be engaged enough to commit to doing something beyond high school to improve their education and get some sort of credential that has value in the marketplace. And helping them. I think what I really took to heart is that kids have to understand in high school what those career pathways are and what they're good at and what they can drive toward. And I think if we put good information in their hands at the time that they make decisions, then they'll follow those pathways in high numbers.
I think in Louisiana, historically, our challenge has been a little bit more elemental in that it's pretty hard to be engaged in a good job if you don't have a good job. And so the biggest opportunity I think that we have as a state is to be able to really embrace the goal of being one of the great growth states of America, to be one of the fastest growing states in the country from a job growth perspective, and so many of the other things that we want to accomplish, whether it's engagement of people in their jobs, population growth, growth in tax revenues to fund transportation infrastructure, higher education, reduction in poverty, all go back to that core idea of being a growth state, of creating new jobs at a faster rate than the South and the U.S. overall. The one other thing I would strongly agree with that was suggested in the presentation is the importance of entrepreneurship. And I think Louisiana historically, unfortunately because of the very incredible geographic assets of our state, too often people have been able to make a good living because of that, and I think as a result we haven't had the level of entrepreneurial energy that we've needed compared to many other states around the country.
We talk to our members, what we hear a lot are when they look for the workers they're trying to find, they're worried about basic education and technical skills. So I was very glad he talked about K-12. I think that's an important piece of it. But we also hear a lot of what they call soft skills, and what he was basically talking about as far as engaging and finding what you're passionate about and sending kids into prepared to that. That is one of the largest challenges our members face. 90% of the members that we've polled have said that soft skills are just as important as technical or basic education skills on what they're looking for in the void they're seeing today. And so I think that engagement piece is a big piece of it, because if the students are coming out of our education systems excited about what the career path is for that, how they meet that, I think that'll go a long way towards meeting that demand. So what I took away was, I'm glad that we're talking about higher ed today, but I'm glad that he brought up K-12 and engagement as a piece for success in higher ed, because I don't think you can have just this one little siloed approach to improving higher ed. It has got to be almost a continuum of care that we talk about in healthcare a lot. It's got to be the same thing with workforce, K-12 all the way through post-secondary.
We took a proactive approach in meeting with Nicholls State, and we focused and did a maritime management program, and really giving credit to the school, because this has been tried. I think everybody has heard this, I guess, blueprint, if you want to call it that, and a lot of time it's failed, but we took an approach of saying, let us write the curriculum. We brought it in as part of the business school itself. We didn't create a minor or anything else. It's a focus where the kid's going to get 15 hours or at a minimum of 15, probably 18. But we wrote the curriculum, but the biggest thing is that any kid that's involved in it, we've offered internships to, which has really been great for us. At Bollinger's, we have 4 of them. 3 are graduating in May, and I'm hiring all of them. So they all have jobs coming out. So having, I think, those kind of programs where we actually writing the curriculum has definitely created an excitement, I think, in the business school. And we're hoping to have some momentum, so we are excited about that.
Let me just say, in terms of opening comments, that, we get it. It is about connecting higher education to the job needs of the state and the country and the globe. But of course, having that recognition is one thing, but being able to do the things that are necessary to get where we need to go, both in the short run and in the long run, are details that I think we'll be developing over time, and a lot of those have yet to be fleshed out.
Everybody wins when the students are able to be successful right out of college. Everyone wins when the business and industry gets what they need and what they want from our graduates. And, this is a long-term proposition for us to be able to really be much more strategic. And by the way, I think when you look at our institutions and our programs, we already are about the business of workforce. This is what we do every day. We work very hard to make sure that we have quality programs that produce quality graduates. And I think what we're talking about here is just a sharper focus on those connections that allow us to fill shortages. Okay, so it's an and it's not an or. And so I think you'll find from our institutions, and from all of our institutions, that we do want to ramp up our partnerships with business and industry to be able to make sure that we are producing what they need. And also importantly for our students, that they are able to, as was said in the first conversation, have meaningful lifelong work that's a perfect fit for them.
But we are actually falling pretty much in line with what's going on around the nation. We've done a great job in higher education telling folks and people to trust us, we're worth it. And we know that our graduates go out and do great things and clearly differentiate themselves in earnings potential and other job type opportunities throughout their lifetime. But now we're in a different environment, and that different environment demands that we start assessing the outcomes, start showing people what performance we have as institutions. And this isn't just really a Louisiana issue, and this is really where WISE comes into play. The WISE Fund is also an innovation fund for research, cutting-edge research, but also for workforce development. But when 32 states have moved in this direction and similar directions, and the Department of Education, from the White House through the Department of Education, are all talking about ways to measuring which institutions are actually doing a good job, we need to be right in the middle of this, engaged in this, and help shape that dialogue, whether it's with the WISE Fund here in Louisiana or at the federal level as well.
We are in the midst of one of those boom cycles. There's no question about that. The question is, have we learned the lessons of the past? How do you define a college education? How do we define a college education together? The old notion of a college education, if you didn't get it from this morning's presentation, I thought that was a well-placed lead-in, if you will, to this discussion. College education is different today than it was 20 years ago. We've got to take the time to understand what that college education looks like collectively, and then begin to invest in that human capital, because the only way for us to smooth the booms and busts of the past is by investing in human capital. It will fundamentally change the Louisiana economy. It will fundamentally change our landscape, and hopefully allow us to not see the dips that we've seen in the past, so that our people can work, be it in Louisiana, be it in kind of that world environment, that world economy. The other point that I would make to you, when we define a college education, we must be sure to define it across the scale to include skill sets as well as baccalaureate degrees and advanced degrees. When you look back over time, the states and the nations that have done this thing right have looked at three critical components in order to build human capital. Research is important. Workforce development is absolutely critical, and that's the discussion that we're having today, and economic development. We've done an unbelievable job in the economic development world. We are trying to build our workforce components. So when you think of that three-legged stool, that's exactly where we are today, is ensuring that we have that strong workforce development apparatus to be able to serve what we see as an oncoming onslaught, if you will, of jobs in the economic development side.
Well, I think it's been pretty well documented over the last 6 or 7 years what has happened to higher ed here in the state of Louisiana, and the cuts that have affected higher ed and how it's affected higher ed. I think the critical point at this time is to look and see what we can do as we move forward. It's obviously, everybody has seen what the governor has proposed in his budget when he rolled out the executive budget several weeks ago, $141 million for higher ed. $40 million will be used for the WISE Fund, which I think is a great program for the people of Louisiana, for higher ed in general. And I'll just give you an example. The benefit for the WISE Fund in Lake Charles, McNeese State University will be able to use the WISE Fund. Right now, we're producing only 1/3 of the required engineers that will be needed in the future for all the $60 to $70 billion worth of economic development that's going on in our area. So the WISE Fund will be able to be used for that. But there's a lot of things different that we can do with higher ed. I've said it before, and I'll say it again today. We have to change the brand of higher ed here in the state of Louisiana. And to Dr. Alexander's credit, he has certainly done that. He's been here less than a year, and some of the changes that he's made out at LSU has carried a long way. I think another important piece that we saw a few weeks ago at the LSU campus is when the governor rolled out his plan and discussed the WISE Fund, is you saw a collaboration of all of higher ed. You saw the 3 university systems presidents there. You saw the Regents, Mr. Raspberry there. I think that's a start. We've got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of issues we have to resolve. Obviously, we can't resolve it, or it's going to be very difficult to resolve it with state general fund money. The state general fund, as we know, has taken a hard hit since the recession of 2008. And the fact is,